second time. The first time we spoke and we went through a very similar discussion was in MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I look forward to perhaps doing this again either next year or the year after. And if you, as a participant in today's conversation, want to come along next time, please ask the team. Maybe they'll let you. I don't know if they will or if they will not. But today, my name is Andrew Ive. We're going to be talking about what do accelerators look for when working with entrepreneurs. A bit of background about me. I was one of the kind of founding members of FoodX. FoodX was the world's first food tech accelerator. When I was involved in growing FoodX, I invested in and worked with about 50 startup companies in the food and food tech category. We would look around the world for the world's best startups. We would invest in them, we would give them cash, and then we would invite them to come work with us in New York City. And we would then spend about 3 months with those companies, helping them, introducing them to a network of mentors, and ultimately determining where the challenges were in the business and doing our best to address them. So FoodX was a great food tech accelerator. The company that was behind that closed FoodX about 2 months ago. I, by then, had left FoodX to start a new accelerator and fund focused on alternative protein. That's called Big Idea Ventures. So Big Idea Ventures is now in Singapore, focused on Asia. We expect to be in other locations throughout Asia over the next, I would say, 12 to 18 months. We're also in New York, focused on North America, and Paris, focused on Europe. We've got some amazing partners. So we've been able to bring on board some large corporates as partners. We think they can help support the companies that we invest in. Those partners include Tyson Food, Meiji out of Japan. It includes Beulah and Givaudan and other large corporates from many different parts of the world. Our goal is to bring the best corporates and investors and thought leaders together to support entrepreneurs. And that's really the focus. So let's get into the presentation. If you do have questions, please do put them in the chat box, and then we will collect them, and then you'll be able to ask your question at the end of our discussion today. Thanks very much. So just a quick overview of Big Idea Ventures. I'm not sure if you can really see the photograph in the background, but this is the waiting area of our office in Singapore. Very nice place, and we love kind of hanging out with startups there. Our mission is to solve the world's greatest challenges by supporting and investing in the world's best entrepreneurs, scientists, and engineers. It's our belief that the challenges we have as a species, whether it's climate change or another significant challenge, all of those challenges are solvable by giving entrepreneurs, scientists, and engineers the resources, the network, and the support they need to deliver the solutions to us. We're optimistic about the future. A lot of people are concerned about climate change, the environment, and other things, but ultimately we believe that humanity is creative and is able to find solutions to problems. And so our role at Big Idea Ventures is to find those best entrepreneurs, engineers, and scientists, and to give them all the help we can so that they can be successful in bringing these solutions to us all. In terms of I mentioned we're a global accelerator and fund. We are both a fund and an accelerator. What that means is we find great companies, we invest in them, we help them, we support them, and as they grow, we have more funds. As we invest in them, we have more funds as they grow to continue to invest and to help them to become more and more successful. Many accelerators out there, and there are now quite a few accelerators, especially in food, for example, will have a limited amount of money. They basically work with companies, and eventually those companies leave and go and launch their companies successfully to market. Some of the challenges of those other accelerators is they don't have a fund backing them to be able to continue to support the best companies as they launch and grow. When I left FoodX, I decided to change the accelerator model. The accelerator model is pretty standard in other in other places. Generally, they are a 12-week program, and what I found, having done this many times before, is that you spend the first 3 or 4 weeks of a program working with companies, and that time is spent learning about them and learning about the challenges that they have. The second 4 weeks of that 12-week program is 4 weeks of trying to help them solve those challenges, bringing great mentors, bringing great thought leaders, business people, etc., across a whole range of services and experiences to help them solve those problems. But at the end of the day, you have 4 weeks to help a company address the challenges that they have. And then the last 4 weeks of an accelerator is typically getting them ready to stand up on stage and present to a room full of potential investors. That's something we call demo day. So demo day is when you stand up on stage and you present over usually 3 to 5 minutes. You present your business to the room. Many people are uncomfortable. Excuse me. Many people are not particularly comfortable speaking in public, and you spend probably 3 or 4 weeks making that deck and that presentation ready for demo day, and encouraging the CEO to be ready to present. What that means is, if you have 4 weeks getting ready and helping a company identify the challenges, and then you have 4 weeks at the end getting a company ready to present, the actual work time when you can help a company is the middle 4 weeks. And I felt that 4 weeks wasn't enough. I felt like I needed maybe 2 to 3 times that length of time to really help a company solve its challenges and get stronger. We've so far invested at Big Idea Ventures in 44 companies over the last 18 months. Of those 44 companies, approximately 50 to 60% have raised money. A number of those companies have raised between $2 and $5 million, and none of those companies have failed. Now, that's not to say that they won't, because it's going to be impossible, I would imagine, for us to make 100 investments, which is our goal with the current fund, and not have some of those companies fail. It's an absolute guarantee that it will happen. But so far, having invested in 44 companies, none of those companies have failed. It could be because we're working with them for 3 months on their challenges instead of 4 weeks. But maybe it isn't. Maybe it's just because I don't know why, actually. I'm sure we'll figure that out over time. So most programs are 3 months long. Techstars, Y Combinator, etc. are 3 months long. Ours is typically ours is typically 5 months long. So we've almost doubled the length of time of our program. So I think somebody wanted to annotate, but now it's not letting me move the slide. Is there something else? Okay, let's see if that works. Yeah, the slide isn't moving now. I think someone gave me the opportunity to annotate, and now the slides aren't moving forward, unfortunately. Ah, here we are. I can't hear. Okay, let's continue if that's okay with everyone. Okay, so in terms of what our first fund, the New Protein Fund, focuses on, we have a very specific area of focus. The first is plant-based products, what we call alternative protein. So we're focused on plant-based meat, seafood, and dairy. We're also focused on cell-based products. So again, cell-based meat, seafood, and dairy. And a subset within that is fermentation-based. So we have been looking also for companies that are using precision fermentation to create meat, seafood, and dairy. And the third category is what we call ecosystem drivers, which is basically the technologies and ingredients that will support and facilitate either plant-based or cell-based or fermentation-based meat, seafood, and dairy products. Now, getting back to the big idea and getting back to the solving the world's greatest challenges by backing the world's best entrepreneurs, why are we focused on alternative protein or in meat, seafood, and dairy? I think there's a number of key reasons. One is animal factory farming in the quantity we deliver that globally is causing some significant challenges from a environmental and climate warming perspective. Set from a seafood perspective, I think we're all becoming more and more aware that we are increasingly a burden on the oceans in terms of the amount of seafood that we fish and consume. From a dairy perspective, dairy and cows, etc., are a significant contributor to climate change also. Now, here's the thing. If you ask people to change their pattern, the food they eat and how they eat it, how they experience sitting around a table with their family, eat the foods that they put in their mouths on a day-to-day basis, no one is going to make those changes. Even if you ask them nicely, even if you talk to them about climate change, it's very difficult for us as humans to correlate, us eating a beef burger or us eating a pork dumpling and associating that with what's happening from a global warming climate change perspective. Now, the reality is that obviously those things are linked, but how do you make people do things more sustainably? Our answer, or at least what we believe, is by giving them great tasting, well-priced foods that are identical to the foods that they've grown up loving and experiencing with their friends and with their family. So our role is to find great tasting meat, seafood, and dairy products that are made in a far more sustainable way. So we're not asking people to change. We're not asking people to stop eating delicious food or to stop eating the foods that they've grown up loving. We're asking people to continue to eat those foods, but to eat the foods that are delivered or created in a far more sustainable way. And that's what we're about. We are about finding great entrepreneurs who are creating delicious food that everybody knows and loves already in a more sustainable way. It's really that simple. A few things to take into consideration, and this is important because at Big Ideas, we call ourselves Big Idea Ventures because we're looking for innovations and young companies, startups, and products that have the potential to be global, to have a global impact. Because if you want to make the world a better place, you should obviously pursue ideas that are going to have an impact that is significant. There's no point having an impact in one city. Well, actually, that's not true. You should try and have an impact in one city as well. But if you're going to change the world, try and find entrepreneurs and ideas and innovations that have the capacity to change the world, that are big, that are enormous. A few things to take into consideration. There's an estimate that by 2040, 60% of the meat we consume in Asia will be alternative. By alternative, I mean plant, fermentation, or cell-based protein. The belief is that 35% of that meat will be cell-based and 25% of that meat will be plant-based. Now, Singapore recently deregulated cell-based meat. What that means is now, if you produce cell-based meat, i.e. meat where you're making the cells grow within a commercial environment instead of a farm. So in other words, you're using a bioreactor to grow the meat instead of growing the meat on the back of a skeleton. That is now within Singapore. You can sell it and you can give it to people for consumption. They've determined that it's completely safe. Singapore's the first country to do that. I anticipate that there are other governments around Asia in particular who are looking at what Singapore has done and are determining for themselves if this is something that they will allow. If they determine it will, it greatly improves food security for the country, because if you have any constraints in terms of whether it's water or land, being able to grow and produce meat within commercial environments, i.e. within a factory or a warehouse or within a commercial environment instead of in a field or in a kind of animal factory farming situation, it's far more efficient. It doesn't take 12 to 18 months to grow the meat, and it doesn't take the water, the antibiotics to keep the animal from disease, and etc. It's an incredibly clean way of manufacturing meat. And from a plant-based meat perspective, more and more entrepreneurs around the world are creating amazing products that look and taste and have the texture and the bite and increasingly the price of the meat products that they are attempting to substitute. 78% of the meat and seafood in Asia has the potential to be provided using either plant-based or cell-based technologies. And whether we like it or not, there's going to be an estimated 725% increase in the amount of poultry, so chickens, etc., that we consume within Southeast Asia. That means we need to find 700 to 800% more chickens on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a yearly basis to be able to deliver the chickens that we expect to consume as a people. You have to wonder whether that's possible through the current factory farming methods that we use. Now, why are we focused on these things? One is an expanding global population. Next, it's the environment and the sustainability. And third, food safety and security. There are some that believe from a data perspective that there's increasingly more diseases possible through zoonotic transference between animals and humans. That it's possible that COVID may not be the last pandemic that we experience if we try and deliver that 725% increase in the amount of chickens we need to consume using the current methods that we have. And it's not just chickens, it's chicken, it's beef, it's pork, it's all the other things that we consume as well. So plant-based and cell-based is a way of producing what people want, need, love to consume in a way that's safer and more sustainable. That's why we are focused with our first fund on alternative protein. Now let's get into some of the companies that we've invested in, and let me talk to you about why we invested in them. So Biftek is a company in Turkey. When we found them, they were basically 3 to 4 people in a laboratory. They have created a plant-based growth factor. Now, what does that mean? Well, growth factor is the liquid that you need to make animal cells grow and replicate outside of the body. So what happens is you take a cell from a pig or a cow or a fish, and you put it with growth factor, and the reason it's called growth factor is because it makes the cells multiply. And if you make those cells multiply over about a 7 to 14 day period, you can grow a kilogram of meat or a kilogram of fish. And the speeds of growth that we are able to create and the amount of meat that we can create is increasing over time. We are getting more efficient at doing this. And what this means is, if you consider either plant-based or cell-based, from a plant-based alternative protein perspective, you need inputs. You need pea protein or soy or wheat or some other some other grain. If you are a country, you need to get that soy, wheat, pea from other places. You need to rely upon your neighbors and the countries that you have relationships with to send you that raw ingredients, unless you are completely self-sustaining. Most countries are not. In the case, and that's that's to create plant-based. In the traditional animal factory farming methods, again, you need feed and grain and antibiotics and water and land. A lot of inputs, potentially inputs that are not all local and all from your country, to be able to continue to feed the animals that you are growing. The pork, the duck, the chicken, etc. From a cell-based perspective, you need a commercial environment, you need the cells, and you need growth factor. And likely you need a bioreactor, which is also readily available. You don't need the land, you don't need the water, you don't need the antibiotics, you don't need to import the grain and things to feed the animals, because there are no animals to feed. What that means is that cell-based is a far more sustainable, faster, less input and food secure way of providing protein. It's a very interesting technology, certainly worth looking at. And BIFTEC have created the world's first plant-based growth factor to make those cells reproduce. It's 80 times less expensive than traditional growth factor. And the barrier to be able to make meat price competitive using cell-based has traditionally been the growth factor. It's an expensive ingredient to make. These guys have created a plant-based version of that growth factor. Guy Foods is Singapore's first cell-based meat company, and it's Southeast Asia's first cultivated red meat company. Its mission is to accelerate and adopt technological advancements to bring cultured meat to consumers who care about source, quality, and environmental impact. It's focused on Asian consumers. The texture, the taste, the way it's presented is all very traditional and relevant to the Asian consumer. And they're using the Singaporean government's R&D to be able to produce this product. When we found Gaia Foods, it was 2 people who basically came up to me at the end of a presentation, very much like this one, and they told me they had this idea to be Singapore's first red meat cell-based company, and asked if we would consider backing them and supporting them. We absolutely did that. The two people were enthusiastic, were driven. We felt that they would with support be very successful, and we decided to back them. So, one of the key subject of this presentation today is, what do accelerators look for in entrepreneurs? We look for people who are motivated, who are driven to be successful, who won't quit when it gets tough. And the reality is, every company, whether they're small, medium, or large, have tough times, and many times where they should or could consider quitting. And one of the qualities we look for in entrepreneurs is not quitting, is the desire to be successful, the desire to accomplish their vision. And if we find entrepreneurs who won't quit, who are very passionate about making things better, then usually we'll consider investing in them. Gelitech. Gelitech is the world's first cell-based gelatin and collagen company. Gelitech, the photo in the presentation is the world's first collagen gelatin-based gummy bear. Gummy bears that you see in the background are candy that use traditional gelatin or bones from animals to be produced. Gelitech is used using cell and is not used using animal bones. Its mission is to efficiently produce pure, high quality, sustainable, and customizable gelatin and collagen without compromising animals. And the story of how Gelitech got started, Ryan Bethencourt, who is a visionary in biotechnology and working with startups in this space, is a friend. And he and I were talking about how we've looked for many years for a cell-based gelatin collagen company, and we had been unable to find one. He asked me if he could find 2 or 3 scientists who were looking for their next job, who were looking for their next opportunity. If he could find 2 people like that, would we back it as Big Idea Ventures? And because we had spent many years looking for a company that would do this, I absolutely agreed. And so Ryan and I spent the next month looking for one person, actually, one person who would want to be the CEO of this new company. And we found a lady called Stephanie Mickelson. Stephanie had worked with Ryan before. She was a great technologist. She was great in biology, and she was also really good with people. And we thought she would make a great CEO. We wrote a check for $200,000, and we asked her to start a company, and she did. Gelitech recently closed $2 million in investment from multiple investors. They have a team of people in the Netherlands. They have a team of people in the US, and they've produced this proof of concept that you see on the screen. And that was, again, that was us kind of identifying a significant need, finding a great person, giving them a little bit of money and encouragement, and then supporting them and helping them to grow a great company. They've been offered, although they've closed $2 million, they've been offered another $3 to $5 million by a large corporation who want to sit on their board and help them to grow the company faster. I don't think they're going to do that, but what I do think they're going to do is completely change the gelatin and the collagen industry around the world. Zhen Meat, it means precious meat in Mandarin, is China's first and leading plant-based meat company. Their mission is to create innovative, delicious, sustainable plant-based meat products in traditional Chinese style, using plant-based ingredients, whether it's creating a plant-based meat dumpling, a pork tenderloin, or a crayfish for the hot pot industry. So far they've delivered on 3 different products, a beef, a pork, and a crayfish. And the whole goal of Zhen Meat is a traditional Chinese cuisine using the latest innovations in food tech and alternative protein. The food is absolutely delicious, and it's already being made available in many restaurants across Beijing and other places in China. They've been called the impossible meat of China. This is a really good example of product localization. We're not encouraging entrepreneurs to create an American burger patty and try and sell it across the world. We're trying to find companies that are producing local tastes and styles that are relevant to the market and the markets that they are in. So, for example, if you consider the pork dumpling in Asia is the equivalent of the American burger in America. It's the product that people consume most and daily with friends on their own all the time. The pork dumpling is one of the most ubiquitous products being consumed across Asia today. Patch Organics has created a range of milk using pumpkin seed. We've seen milk being used or being made out of cashew, almond, and various other things. Some of those products are allergens, and Patch Organic uses pumpkin seed to make milk alternatives, which have a low environmental impact, and their product is organic, plant-based, and it's free from dairy, gluten, cholesterol, or GMO. Two flavors, original and chocolate, both are delicious. This is a really interesting product. The original product, I think, is really quite close to milk. When we considered investing in Patch Organic, we had received probably 10 different applications from plant-based milk companies, a number of samples. The interesting thing is every 6 months, we look for the next 15 to 20 companies around the world that we'll invest in. We encourage any entrepreneurs in our category to apply to us for investment through our website. And twice a year, we get probably 200 to 300 applicants, and we choose around 15 to 20 companies. In this case, when we open our door for investment, we ask companies to send samples. And what happens for me personally is for about 3 days, every hour, I'll get a different person ringing on my doorbell, and a FedEx, UPS, the postman, every hour is dropping off another sample of great foods from great entrepreneurs, and it drives my family crazy. The dog, my wife, my daughter. For 3 days, I end up getting the doorbell ringing every hour. It's like children are playing a game and like pressing the bell and running away. But instead, every time I open the door is another package with another great sample and great foods from great entrepreneurs. So it's actually, I love that 3-day period. It's very entertaining. So this is a pizza. It's one of a really delicious pizza. You'll see the cheese on the top of the pizza. One of the most difficult things in the alternative protein space to produce is really great cheese. Dairy is a great ingredient for manufacturing amazing cheese and milks and so on. Very difficult to do well using an alternative method. In this case, Grounded has used the humble cauliflower and hemp to create an amazing plant-based cheese. They've also created cream cheese and liquid cheese. It's nut-free, it's plant-based, it's soy-free. It's just a really great tasting product. Again, when they applied, we had maybe 10 to 15 companies all asking us to consider investing in the cheese space. The majority of companies in the alternative cheese category use cashew, and cashew in my mind, isn't actually a great ingredient for making alternative cheese. It solidifies, it has a kind of similar texture to cheese, although somewhat denser. But ultimately, the taste for me isn't the same as dairy. So I love that there are companies out there that are looking at cauliflower and oats and other ingredients as a way of creating plant-based cheeses. Gourmet. Gourmet is France's first cell-based meat company, and they're reinventing France's most iconic delicacy, foie gras. So foie gras, which is a duck liver pate, in this case, they take the cell from an egg, a duck egg, and they make that duck egg cell grow and ultimately create what you have on this screen, which is a traditional French foie gras. It's harvested from animal cells, not by growing an animal and then killing the animal. Their goal is to create a vertically integrated meat company from the cell to the fork. Their business strategy consists of building a technology platform around duck stem cells that will give life to meat products sold under its consumer brand. The gourmet product foie gras has been tested and tasted throughout Paris and other places, and people think the product is identical to the foie gras that France has become very well known for. I saw that somebody just posted a question. I'll, if it's okay, come to that question at the end. If you have more questions, please do post them. How am I doing for time? You told me 30 to 40 minutes. Is that, do we still have a little bit of time? Oh, we do. Great. Evo Foods. Evo Foods is a company in India. They're making liquid egg using plant-based ingredients. This is a product that comes in a bottle that you pour on a frying pan, and you can make omelette. You can make eggs that would go on in a sandwich, etc. The total egg market in India is $2 billion. They believe that one of the reasons why people consume eggs in India is for more protein, and from recommendations from doctors. Evo have created India's first liquid egg substitute using what's called a multi-protein approach. This is a plant-based egg which is cholesterol-free, delicious, and without using animals. Black Sheep Foods, they've created a lamb product using natural ingredients. It has the texture of regular lamb. They can make it in a kebab format and a burger format and other ways. It's an ingredient, a plant-based lamb product that you can use in multiple formats. It's very versatile. They've not yet launched it in Singapore, but will be launching it within the next, I would say, 18 months to 2 years in India, China, and also other Asian countries. Future Foods is based in Malaysia. They've developed a variety of plant-based meat products that serve as an alternative to traditional meat in local Asian cuisines. They have the same nutrients as the animal protein that they're replacing, and their aim is to solve the global food sustainability and safety issues in Asia. The Future team came to us when they were just 2 to 3 people. Super excited, super young team. The product was still very much in development, and we invested based on their passion and the kind of big idea behind what they wanted to accomplish. Another thing about this product is it's halal. It's considered halal, and they're focusing their product on the market and the consumers who are interested in in the halal meat. Karana is a company based in Singapore. They've launched in Singapore, Taiwan, and will be in other locations. Their goal is to create plant-based, traditional Asian style foods that have the same taste and texture as the foods they will replace. The ingredient for this product is jackfruit, young jackfruit. Young jackfruit is tasteless but has the texture of pork. So if you bring it together with a great traditional pork style sauce, a sweet sauce, and you marinate it in that sauce, it ends up with the same taste and texture as a traditional pork dumpling. They've created char siu bao out of the jackfruit, and they're sourcing that jackfruit from Sri Lanka. It's a fruit native and abundant in Asia. The last thing to mention is we're in the process of developing what we call the Big Idea Food Competition. And what we want to do is to find the #1 plant-based startup and food product across Asia. We are tired of everyone talking about Impossible and Beyond and the American plant-based burger. There's more people in Asia than in North America. I think we deserve to find the #1 plant-based food product in Asia and show the rest of the world that Impossible Foods and Beyond is nothing compared to the best tasting plant-based food product that Asia can produce. So, Big Idea Food Competition, we're talking to the governments of each of the countries in Asia. We've spoken to Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, Korea, Japan, China, Singapore, Vietnam, and we would like to host at the beginning of 2022 a competition in each country where we bring together the best startups in each country to pitch to local judges of celebrities and chefs who will taste those foods, understand the big idea behind the food product that's being presented to them, and ultimately we can find the #1 Asian plant-based food company in each country. So the #1 in Japan, the #1 in Korea, the #1 in Japan, in Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, etc. And then those companies can go and compete against each other to find the #1 plant-based food company in Asia. And Big Idea Ventures will give a large financial prize to both the winners of each country and also the overall winner, and then support those companies to be to grow locally and then within the region, and ultimately we hope globally. We're really keen on helping Asian entrepreneurs, especially in the alternative protein category, to grow and to become globally successful. So that's the Big Idea Food Competition. We'll be talking more to your country about it, and hopefully they will support and be interested in getting involved in that. If you'd like to find out more about us, we're at bigideaventures.com. We're also on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, Big Idea Ventures. And my name is Andrew Ive. So if there are any questions and I haven't spoken for the whole time, I'd love to answer any questions you have.
Amazing. I'm exciting and hungry at the same time.
Me too.
These questions. Okay. Wow. This is great opportunities for Thai startups to join the competition. I mean, as you mentioned at the end of the presentation. Okay. I think we have maybe 10 minutes for the questions, and there are some questions from the box. I might read could you please explain whether there are any similarities between cell-based meat and GMO? Are there any health concerns if consuming cell-based meat in the long term? Yeah, this is the first question.
I think that's a great question. Yeah, that's not only is that a great question, that's the first question people ask about this. It's the most important question. A couple of things to take into consideration. The first is I'm not a scientist. So that's the first thing to take into consideration. The second is what's happening with cell-based is they are basic traditional cells, so cells that you take from an animal, and you're making that cell grow. At the micro level, if you put the cell-based meat under a microscope, it is identical to traditional cells and traditional meat. There is absolutely no difference. So whether you grow those cells on a skeleton by giving an animal food and water and putting it in a factory farm environment and growing it over 12, 18 months or not, at the end of the day, it's at the microscopic level, it is exactly the same cell. Whether you grow it in a bioreactor or whether you grow it on an animal. Singapore has spent a number of years looking at this. They've had scientists looking at this, and they've decided and come to the conclusion that it is absolutely safe and have deregulated it so that now you can buy and consume cell-based meat. Just a company launched a cell-based chicken product to Singapore probably about 3 months ago. So now you can get home delivery of cell-based chicken. So identical to regular cells. That's the first thing. The second thing is it GMO? GMO is genetically modified. In other words, you've taken the genes of something and you've changed them to make it do something or not do something. In this case, there's no modification. Those cells are not being made bigger or smaller or more delicious or less delicious. There's no changes to the cells. All that they are doing in this cell-based industry is making those cells grow. And they're making those cells grow in a sterile environment. And why do I say sterile environment? Because when you grow animals, you need to give those animals a significant amount of antibiotics to stop them from getting diseases. Okay. And those antibiotics are included within the meat that you consume. So and also when you convert that animal into meat, it's normally within the environment that includes the potential for feces and other negatives. I'm trying to be as polite as possible. When you grow cells in a commercial environment, it's in a sterile environment with no feces, no antibiotics, none of the potential for disease. So it's actually a cleaner way of creating cells than traditional.
Okay, thank you for the answer. I think it's covered. Next question is, if we modify the plant-based products in order to satisfy consumers' taste buds, what do you think about the effects of additives or too much modification that may lead to long-term health risk?
I think that's another great question. I think when plant-based, well, two things. Plant-based foods have been in existence, especially in Asia, for hundreds of years. So, you know, soy and tempeh and, you know, other products have been in existence for hundreds of years. Asia basically created plant-based products and alternative protein. Literally Asia is the beginning of all of these products. But over the last 10 years, we've become more innovative around this category. And in the beginning, some of these products did include too many ingredients because what they were trying to do was to become identical from a taste perspective. And the way they did that was by throwing in as much processed ingredients as possible. Over the last, I would say, 3 years, consumers have become more and more aware of this and have been pushing producers to become cleaner label, simpler ingredients, and to be more creative in using fewer processed and fewer ingredients. And I do think more and more companies in the plant-based category have been able to achieve the right taste and texture in a far simpler, cleaner ingredient way. But you should always look at the ingredients of these products before you consume them and make sure you're comfortable. But I think companies are getting better at doing it cleaner now.
Okay. Next question is, what stage do startups have to be for big idea ventures to consider backing?
So we've invested in companies that are, 2 people, a really good idea, and no product.
Okay.
So we've invested in people very, very young. Normally, they need an idea and some degree of proof that the idea needs to be big. It needs to be, if they do this, if they can accomplish this particular product or technology, then it's going to have a significant impact on the world. There needs to be a big idea there, and there needs to be passion there, and there needs to be some degree of proof that there's interest. I'll give you an example. We invested in a company called Meli Bio, and Meli Bio is creating fermentation-based honey. So at the molecular level, it has the look and taste of regular honey, but it doesn't require bees, and it doesn't require the need to go out and find the honey and bring it back or take it and harvest it. They can create honey without bees completely. Why is that good? Because it allows you to produce large quantities of honey for the food industry, as a sweetener, as an additive for shampoos, cosmetics, and other things, without needing to have bees spend months to create this product. You can create it very quickly.
Okay, I think one more question is plant-based meat and cell-based meat price comparable to regular meat? I think she mentioned that she found it is quite expensive. So what do you think about the price?
So plant-based meat, cell-based meat, when it started, or when companies started to create it, was $30,000 for a pound of meat, which is incredibly expensive. Now they've got that down to much less expense. Now it's down to almost comparable with regular meat, almost. And I mentioned that Just, for example, is selling cell-based chicken in Singapore right now and delivering it to people's homes. So it's more expensive, but it's not much more expensive. From a plant-based perspective, it's becoming more and more in line with regular meat. A lot of this is about scale. So there are companies that are slaughtering thousands and thousands of animals on a daily basis, billions of animals on a daily basis around the world. That means the prices of meat, traditional meat, is very inexpensive. As demand increases for plant-based and cell-based, then it will be possible to produce it at a comparable price. From a cell-based perspective, my prediction, if I can give one, is that within the next, I would say, 2 to 3 years, cell-based will be less expensive than traditional meat, because traditional meat requires 12 to 18 months to grow. It requires a lot of water, food, etc. Whereas you can grow that meat without any of those inputs in a commercial environment using cell-based. And ultimately, it's going to be far less expensive than traditional meat.
Okay, that's great. I think one more question from Dr. Kravit. as you mentioned that the proportion of the cell culture-based meat will be higher than plant-based protein, is it because of the cultivation of plant takes longer and require more resources, for example, land, water, and so on?
So that was taken from a research study. I'm not sure of the basis for their beliefs that cell-based will be higher than plant-based. My personal belief is, however, that cell-based will be higher than plant-based for two key reasons. One is that cell-based is identical to traditional meat, and therefore you're not asking people to slightly change their habits. Like plant-based is close, but it's not 100% replica in terms of taste and texture. So if you want people to have an identical product, the only way to currently do that is going to be through cell-based. So that's the first thing in terms of consumer habits, tastes, and demands. In terms of the second reason, cell-based is completely food secure. It can be grown using a bioreactor in a commercial environment using growth factor and cells. The inputs are very small. What that means is a government and a country can be completely self-sustaining. They don't need crops to feed animals. They don't need the animals. They don't need the inputs from their neighbors to be able to create a protein source for their people that is fast growing and is completely food secure. And I think if one thing that COVID has done to us all, including our governments, is to make the awareness of the supply chain, especially the international supply chain. What that means is if you want to be food secure as a country in the next 5 to 10 years, and you don't want to rely upon your neighbors to give you food when there's a crisis, the only way that you can have predictable food security is through cell-based technology.
All right.
So I personally think that governments will be driving the movement towards cell-based over time. That's my personal belief.
Okay. So last but not least, I would like to invite you to give a final recommendations for the startups, especially for ones that you are interested in, for example, the plant-based and everything. Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so my final recommendation is we want to find and help and support entrepreneurs and startups. So the first thing is please do apply and reach out to us. We would love to support you. The second thing, and I know you said one, but the second thing is there are a lot of companies like ours, accelerators like ours, who even if you're not in the alternative protein space, want to help you if you're in food or if you're not in food. So please do look for that help. I know, for example, that Y Combinator, Techstars, SOSV, and others are all looking to help young entrepreneurs. If you're in the alternative protein space, there's only one place to apply, that's us. But if you're outside of the alternative protein space, there's a lot of organizations out there who want to help you. Find them, be passionate, have a big vision of what you want to accomplish, and don't quit, and you'll get there.
Right. Great suggestions. Okay. Finally, P.A. Would like to say a few words to wrap things up, and
Okay. So I think it's been an hour with lots of thoughts from Andrew and an example of a product and a company that you've been working with. And I'm sure that there's many startups or actually entrepreneurs in Thailand working in the field that be interested by the big idea ventures, and also in others with others accelerator, as you mentioned. And I hope that we can be part of your project in the big idea venture competitions early next year. And In the meantime, we will help the startups here, working with them and make them ready for the bigger competitions that are awaiting next year. And I don't know whether Dr. Akari would like to say some things a little bit.
Just a big round of applause for Andrew for being here up very early from New York time. It's just an eye-opening talk for almost an hour, learning about the idea of the big ideas of ventures, and then the way that to solve one of the world most difficult challenge in terms of the protein supply for the global citizens that will be nearly 10,000 billions in the near future, and everyone needs protein from day one until the last day that they have life. So we just hope that we can put one of Thai food tech startup company on your map through the collaborations that you will initiate early next year. So please keep us in your loop, and we'll do our best to fulfill your dream. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you very much ครับอาจารย์โอนะครับพี่เอก and Andrew thank you great sessions so
Thank you, everyone.
thank you everyone for joining the great session today. And Goff, could you please bring up the poster again? So if you are interested in our next series of the talk, so join the group, and then we'll try to come up with you know, brilliant speakers like Andrew, and then we can discuss and see new opportunities like this, yeah, in this group. Okay,
I think Andrew has a new what's that? It's a puppy?
It's a puppy, yeah. Very nice. All right, have a great day.
Andrew, thank you so much, and have a great day.
Bye bye everyone. Thank you ขอบคุณครับ สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีค่ะ
ใครที่ยังไม่ได้เข้าไลน์ก็เชิญนะครับ เดี๋ยวจะมีซีรีส์ใหม่ๆเราจะพยายามไปหาคนที่เรียกว่ามาเปิดโลกให้เราเนอะทั้งในแง่มุมต่างๆคราวที่แล้วก็เป็นสวิตเซอร์แลนด์นะครับคราวนี้เป็นจากทางไมอามี่แล้วก็ทำงานกับสิงคโปร์ด้วยนะครับครั้งต่อไปก็เดี๋ยวเราจะคุยกันในทีมว่าเราจะมีใครที่น่าสนใจแล้วก็ทำให้เราสามารถที่จะเห็นโอกาสและช่องทางใหม่ๆในการขยายผลงานของเราได้นะครับขอบคุณทุกคนมากที่เข้ามาจอยวันนี้นะครับแล้วก็ฟูโนเพลสเองก็ยังอยู่กับพวกเราตลอดในช่วงเวลาแบบนี้นะครับแล้วก็ทำอะไรไม่ได้เราก็มาทำการเรียนการเปิดโอกาสกันแล้วก็เตรียมตัวต่างๆนะครับเดี๋ยวจะมีโปรแกรมใหม่ๆเข้ามาเพียบเลยนะครับรอติดตามนะครับแล้วก็เป็นกำลังใจพวกเราด้วยนะครับขอบคุณครับสวัสดีครับ
อาจารย์มีเหมือนอาจารย์จะพูดอะไรป่ะคะ
อาจารย์ขอบคุณครับ
ค่ะอาจารย์ขอบคุณค่ะสวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับทำไมกรองจิตถึงมี3ชื่อเลยเนี่ยกรองจิตเป็นสายลับเหรอมี3ชื่อ4ชื่อ พี่เอกไม่ได้ยินไหมพี่เอก
ทั้งหมดประมาณ7 คน